Former Republican operative Steve Schmidt have been knocking the president for a long time, but today his rant on Chris Hayes was on the Republican Party and Republican senators proper. It's a hell of a rant. You've got to listen to the whole thing, but I want you to do me a favor. Listen to the whole thing, and right after it, I have a very important commentary that I have to come out with. Please stick around. Let's get busy and check this out.
The party is irredeemable. It's become a threat to America's institutions, to small L liberalism. It is an authoritarian-ish party, not so different than the parties that we see in Hungary or Poland. It's no longer fidelitous to the American system, to the American Constitution. Really what it is an organized conspiracy to maintain power. Now, the good news is tonight, when you look out across the Senate races, Joni Ernst in Iowa has fallen behind. The Cory Gardner race in Colorado is effectively over. Martha McSally is almost certain to lose. And when you talk about the aforementioned Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, he's running against a Democratic challenger, a Black American, Jamie Harrison. And Jamie Harrison has a real chance to win in South Carolina because voters understand what a fraud Lindsey Graham is, that he's played them for fools for many, many years, and that people, generally speaking, in this country don't like it when their politicians take them for fools, look them in the eye and lie to them the way that Lindsey Graham has. They don't appreciate his betrayal of his former best friend, his embrace of his new best friend. And so wherever we look, we see a party that has been an agent, that has been collaborationist along with Donald Trump in wreaking the damage that we've seen in this country. And again, we are the epicenter of coronavirus death and suffering. We'll have 200,000 dead Americans by the time we make it to the election. We have a shattered economy with 40 million Americans out of work. We see the wholesale corruption of the loan process, where so many small businesses couldn't access the money, but so many cronies of President Trump could. And the collapse of the Republican Party, its putrefaction, its descent into the cesspool is a real tragedy for the country, and we see it playing out now every day. And I'm reminded of the great phrase by the late, great Democratic Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who talked about defining deviancy down. And we've seen years now in the Republican Party of defining deviancy down, is that these senators will explicate Donald Trump on any issue. We saw Joni Ernst last week being asked a question about how Donald Trump is doing on the coronavirus response, and her absurd answer was, I think the president is stepping forward, intimating that he's somehow doing a good job. And of course, it's all theater of the absurd. None of this stuff is possibly justified. His conduct is abhorrent. He's desecrated his office. But more than that, he's literally, without exception, he's the worst leader in the history of the United States in a moment of crisis who was ever charged with any responsibility. And for all of these years, there's no action by Trump that any of these senators can find it in their hearts to condemn. What they're outraged about is that they've all bought their ticket and they're about to take the ride from groups like the Lincoln Project that spend a lot of money telling the truth on them and their records to their voters, and they're outraged about that. I think there's no premise more offensive than that these Republican senators are somehow hostages to the Trump regime and to Donald Trump. They're vested with significant constitutional power, significant institutional power. And in the case of Hawley and Cruz, not only are they demagogues and silly people, they're just empty vessels that care nothing for the ideas and ideals of the country. What they care about is their privilege, their power, their position. They would be comfortable as apparatchiks in any authoritarian regime from time immemorial to forward. They're not in it to defend any high principle. They're not in it to advance any great cause. They're not in it to make the country better. They're small and silly men at a serious hour, and that's the crisis we have in the country. It's a crisis of unseriousness. It's a crisis of cowardice. Think of the guts and the courage of a Rosa Parks compared to these people. The country has no chance of recovering from any of this until he's removed from power. And when we're sitting in November, the Republican Party is going to be more resembling a smoldering ash heap than a political party, and everyone will sit around scratching their heads, and how did this happen? It happened because it became a principleless, authoritarian-ish party party headed by a con man from New York City who has debased, desecrated, and defaced our institutions now for years, and the American people are going to fire him because of it.
Now, let's be clear. Steve Schmidt, he is a conservative Republican. One of the reasons that he's teaming up with Democrats and others right now is the sole purpose now is to get rid of Donald Trump. One of the reasons that they're attacking all the Republican senators that have been sycophants to Donald Trump as well is because the intent here is to reconstitute the Republican Party. Do not sit back and believe there is any sort of a symbiotic relationship between the values of what Democrats believe in, meaning progressive Democrats, and the values of a Steve Schmidt or other Republicans right now that are doing their utter best to get rid of the Republicans who are on the Trump bandwagon. So I want to make it clear to people, we team up with these folks to get rid of Donald Trump. But after that has been done, it is essential that we move right back to what we believe in, what progressives believe in, because while they will be of assist to get rid of Donald Trump and destroy what remains of their party, they would like to use that 4 years not to lose all the values that they believe in, conservatism that doesn't serve the masses. They will be still there trying to curtail what Democrats are all about, meaning progressive Democrats are all about. And if we fall for that stick, what we are going to do is we are not going to serve the American people the way that we need to, the way that we should. And then in the reconstitution of the Republican Party in 2024, they will sweep everything because they would have then changed the narrative to these left-wing Democrats could not accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. Bring the new Republican Party in. And we, the new Republican Party, the party not of Donald Trump, but we've got rid of all the Donald Trump sycophants, and now we will come in as the responsible people to change the process. When you see something like this, where even Ann Coulter comes out, and Ann Coulter says, the lovely Amy McGrath is a Marine Corps veteran. The average donation to her campaign is $36. Mitch McConnell is a broken down old man owed by cheap labor lobbyists. Now, think about that. Ann Coulter is suggesting that Amy McGrath, a Democrat from Kentucky, be elected to the Senate. We cannot be fooled by what is occurring here. What is occurring here is the reconstitution of the Republican Party on the backs of Democrats who they will hold in esteem for the next 2 and 4 years, to then throw it out the door and ensure that progressive values are not really attained. We got to play this very smart, people. I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.